everyone, Nicole here from Sundara Virtual Yoga Studio. Welcome to the Deconstruction of Asana series, a way to either advance your practice or to hone in on understanding the mechanics of some very common asana. I am dedicating this practice to learning how to actually use props and blocks to support us, particularly in Ardha Mukka Svanasana, so in downward facing dog. So I'm going to be deconstructing the purpose of downward facing dog, making sure that we're aligned in the pose, that we can actually understand why it is that we practice the pose, and also some key elements of the pose that are maybe misunderstood. So the blocks, I'm hoping, are going to help provide for you this sense of alignment and finding ease in one of the most sought after asanas in terms of the practice of Hatha Yoga. So when you're ready, just take your mat, and I look forward to guiding you on this wonderful discovery of the deconstruction of the downward facing dog using blocks. So find your space on the mat. So another thing about the use of blocks is that if you actually don't have blocks available, use and grab a couple of books from the bookshelf, and they can act as yoga props. So the important thing about downward facing dog is that we're wanting to get this sense of alignment between the left and right sides of the body. We're also wanting to make sure that we are focusing on what we call an important pelvic tilt when it comes to the apex of the pose. So if we actually think about the apex of downward facing dog, we're actually running energy from the feet up towards and behind the backs of the hamstrings, up towards the bottom of the spine, and then running the energy down from the base of the spine into the shoulders, out through the bottom of the head into the hands. So essentially what we're wanting to do is build length and space and strength in the body to be able to maintain this beautiful apex. So what the goal in Ardha Mukka Svanasana, is to maintain, I guess, the integrity in the energy flow, particularly when it comes to stacking of the weight in the pose. So what we don't essentially want to do is stack weight too far forward into the body, because that does create some challenges with the wrists, and if we actually don't have the strength in the shoulders to maintain what we call a beautiful pelvic tilt, then this could present some challenges for you in terms of overuse or over lengthen the pose, too early. So that's one of the reasons why also, if we don't have the length and space in the hamstrings, then what we actually do is ensure that we're bringing actually the earth up towards us. So if you think about using the blocks and a stable base with which your hands are placed firmly on the block, so we actually don't want you up onto the springs of your fingers, it actually brings the yoga mat up to you. So I guess another philosophy that sits within the deconstruction of this pose using blocks is that we actually don't let the asana, or what we view the asana to look like, to take over how it is that we practice. We actually want to create this sense of modification, and it's okay to actually use the things around us so our body is actually supported and aligned in the pose. Because all of our bodies are different in terms of how we hold length, how we hold space, the left and the right sides in terms of how we're balanced and imbalanced. So there's so many things at play when it comes to working with the asana, and particularly in this pose. So just some precautions also, be conscious of always warming up the hands and the wrists. So we actually don't want to be stacking too much weight onto the wrists. So we actually want to be making sure that we're really grounded and pointed into the 5 points or the 5 knuckles that support the hands. We also want to make sure that we have a 6 point that is connected, back to the earth from the base of the wrist. What we're also wanting to maintain is this sense of feeling our body first. So that's another key principle of of this pose, is that we want to feel into the pose and we want to actually create the modifications as we go. So let's find ourselves firstly in a comfortable tabletop position. So let's just move the blocks to the side for the moment. And essentially what we're going to be doing is just practicing the connection that we have actually between the knuckles and rooting the hands down. So we're going to be basically creating a bit of pressure in through the wrists, in through the knuckles, in through the fingers. So I really want you to expand and push the earth away. So that actually engages the shoulders. So we're actually lifting the shoulders up the back. The eyelids of the elbows, I'd like the eyelids of the elbows focused forward, just so you can get this connection to the earth. I like the flat of the feet nice and flat, so the toes are turned back, and I'd like the navel really engaged, so making your fist through the navel. And let's just firstly just start to warm through the shoulders. So let's create some shoulder dips, so dipping the shoulders down, raising the shoulders up, dipping yourself down, focal point to the floor, raising your shoulders up. Once again, just some warm throughs of the shoulders up to the elbows, nice and strong towards the front of the mat. And just continuing, opening the shoulder blades. And coming back to take a stable position in your tabletop pose. So we're making sure that we're actually breathing as well. So we're not holding the breath, but rather breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. So let's just try that again, up through the spine. Raising the shoulders up and down. So the next inhalation, let's now just start to just get some mobility into the spine. Just by doing some circular motions, inhaling and exhaling. Wonderful rotations. You may also want to start to flip the hips back as you rise yourself up. Variations of cat-cow combination. Just slowly awakening your spine, but maintaining the focal point onto the wrists, making sure that your five-pointed star in terms of your wrist and your hands are nice and connected. That's it. So back to take a stable position now. Now let's just turn the toes back and just start to warm through the feet. So just warming the toes up and down. That's it. And now with the next breath, let's bring the spring of the toes back. And let's just lift up and let's just have the weight transfer towards the front of the body. And now let's just shoot the weight transfer back towards the back of the body. Let's bend the knees. And let's just make sure that our weight, can you see here that if you're following along, the weight transfer is forward. So what we want to do is start to shift the weight transfer back. This is where I'm talking about the pelvic tilt. So the pelvic tilt raises the pelvis up, expand the sit bones, length back through, shoulders down the back, eyelids of the elbow. So we're rotating the shoulders down and away from the ears. And let's just hold here for a few breaths, bending the knees, focusing on the pelvic tilt up, so navel strong. Next, inhale up to the spring of the toes. Let's just come back now to place the buttocks just back to the heels. Let's just try that now with your blocks or your beautiful books. So let's place now both blocks underneath. So what we're doing is stacking the weight from the shoulders, the elbows, nice connected, focused. Energy back through to planting into the earth. Next, inhale, turning the toes back. And you may just want to get a nice little tilt back through the hips. That reminds us to shoot the backward motion of the movement as we raise up and then start to adjust. So you can see here that the tilt of the pelvis is forward and my weight transfer is forward. What we're actually wanting to do is tilt the pelvis back, raise the energy back. So the eyelids of the elbows, nice and locked together. And then bending the knees. And you may just want to start to, just what we call walk the dog here. So raising the energy up and down. And starting to just move the hips. And once again, work with the energy in the hamstrings. Next, inhalation, and if you have the length in the hamstrings, let's just now start to lengthen through the hamstrings, maintaining the tilt in the back of the pelvis, navel up. And your shoulders are away from your ears. And you're focused on the apex, the alignment in the pose. Nice and connected with your hands. That's it. Pelvic tilt, length through the hamstrings. Next, inhale up to the spring of the toes. Let's release here. Let's come back just to rest the shoulders. Palms are facing up. Let's just see how that feels for the wrists and also how it feels for the shoulders. I'm just going to be removing my blocks, but you're welcome to use your blocks. As I said, bringing the earth energy up to make sure that we've actually got the length and space before going into the full version of Ardha Mukka Svanasana. Okay, so placing the hands once again on very strong. So let's set yourself up for success here. Focal point, turning the toes back, getting ready to raise and lift, tilt the hips back. Energy away from the ears. So what we're actually doing in terms of our focal point is back through the backs of the feet. And what we actually don't want is the feet too far to the side of the mat. So we want to maintain the alignment of the hips. So about hip length apart. So just finding where that pose apex is for you. 5 to 8 breaths. And once again, you can always bend through the knees as well. That's perfect until you have the length. Next breath up to the spring of the toes. Let's come back. And a nice counterbalance pose for downward facing dog. Ardha Mukka Svanasana is just to rest, coming to take your balasana. Palms are focused up and surrender. So beautiful yogis, there we have it. A deconstruction of Ardha Mukka Svanasana, downward facing dog. So I hope you've enjoyed this Advancing Your Asana series, and thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.